How do you know when it's time to retire mentally? Well, retirement is a big moment, and how do you know when it's time to retire mentally is a great question because you can be ready financially, but are you ready mentally to stop working and to transition to the next phase of your life? And so this is somewhat a binary question in some regard because men generally are looking at this different from women. There's uniqueness to every person, and every person has different situations, so it's not going to carry by and large. But men generally, when men are looking at retiring or thinking about retirement, uh, a man's identity a lot of times, identity and relationships in particular, are formed in the working world. And so whenever a man is looking at retiring, the it's hard to give up, especially if he's been successful in his career, maybe as some sort of senior leader. Stepping away from that can be really challenging for men, and so it's really kind of got to get to the point where they're just fed up with the stuff, and generally that's when a man is ready to retire, is once they're just really over it, and ready to just kind of relax, take it easy, or maybe just do things that they want to do that they haven't ever been able to do um, before. Women, it's really a different situation because women typically are ready to retire much sooner because it's they're more relationally driven, and generally speaking, right? So women, it's more relationally driven, and so once work gets to a point where they start to kind of feel some anxiousness, or there's things happening that they don't like. Maybe their friends have retired or moved on. They have friendships outside of work that they really want to spend more time, relationally speaking, and um, so women generally are a lot more, at least what I've found, a lot more ready to retire than men are, just because of a woman's identity typically isn't tied up in her work. It's much more than that, and in particular with relationships. And so, however, with that being said, men and women are different, certainly, but there are certain things that a lot of folks think through whenever they're getting ready to retire. So how do you know when you're ready, when it's time to retire mentally? Here are a couple things to think about. The first thing is, are you retiring to something or from something? And I think it matters because the person that has just said, "I've had enough. I'm done with the BS. I'm done with the red tape, and I'm going to retire." That's okay. You've saved, you've sacrificed, and you're ready to call it quits. I certainly get that. However, if you're just retiring from something, that you're going to have that immediate relief, and you're going to be able to have some relaxation, and kind of an moment for the first few months of retirement. But then you're going to have to spend a lot of time figuring out, okay, now what do I do? Because you have unlimited time, just time. A lot of us got a taste of this during the COVID years, during COVID, when there was just no work to do, and so there's only so many honeydews to get done. There's only so much TV you can watch, and so the time just becomes a thing. And so you really want to be thinking not necessarily just retiring from something, but retiring to something as well. So what's that next step look like? And researchers find it really centers around being healthy, having strong relationships, and spending money on things you like to do, things you want to do, but not only leisurely activities, but also maybe some sort of service work, or some things to just kind of keep your mind active and happy. The second consideration is, what are your objectives? And that kind of ties a little bit to the first point of what are you retiring to. But do you want to do a bunch of traveling? Do you want to buy a vacation home? Or do you want to stay home and read? Do you want to do gardening? Do you want to just volunteer your time? What you're trying to accomplish has a lot to do with, are you ready to, how do you know when it's time to retire mentally or not? Is what are your objectives in retirement, and and how are your plans lined up to be able to do that. The third thing is relationships. Are you married? Do you have friends outside of work? Relationships matter immensely, especially in retirement, because now once you're no longer working, you don't have that kind of built-in social interaction. And we are social beings. Being social is wired into us, and so we desire for connection with people. Even introverted folks like me still want those relationships, and so relationships really do drive happiness. And so taking a look around at who are your friends, and if they're all work friends, then it may be time to do some work outside of work on building relationships and friendships, so that you can know that you're ready to retire mentally because you have some social connection and interaction outside of just your workforce. The fourth thing is your spouse. Is your spouse Are you guys on the same page? If you are married, are you on the same page, or is one spouse going to retire and the other one keep working? Generally, that can cause some tension amongst the relationship. And so, is the spouse on the same page? Because your spouse is going to have certainly a huge impact on your mental thoughts and mental process. And so you want to think through, what's your spouse think about this? Are you retiring at the same time, or what are you two going to do together? How is your relationship? Honestly, is it a strong relationship, or have you kind of drifted apart over the years? And maybe there's some mending that needs to happen, before you're ready to just call it quits from work, because now you're going to have unlimited time together, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. And so understanding that relationship with your spouse is certainly a component of it. And then the fifth thing that I would say is, of course, your financial situation. Your finances impact your desire to do things. And so, are you ready to retire financially or not? Do you have enough income? Are you going to be able to cover your expenses? Do you have secure income sources? So maybe you have Social Security. Do you have a pension? If not, do you have other sources of secure income? Because that has been found to be a benefit in your overall happiness and your overall state of mind, in and throughout retirement. And so, financially, are you able to retire? And what type of person are you, wanting to, or what are the things that you want to do in retirement? Certainly ties into that, because you don't necessarily want to retire and just be able to stay home and not be able to do anything, unless that's what you want to do. Maybe that's what you want to do, and that's fine if that is. But if not, you want to make sure that you are financially able to retire, because that will then cause anxiety kind of throughout retirement, which won't be great. And so those are knowing. So when I think about how do you know when it's time to retire mentally, the first thing is are you retiring to something or from something? The second thing is what are you trying to accomplish, or what do you want to do in retirement? The third thing is, what are your relationships like outside of work, and do you have much relationships there? Fourth thing is how does your spouse think about this? Or if you're married, how does your spouse think about it? And the fifth thing is, of course, your financial position. Are you ready to be able to do that?